Tupac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep.
Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all. But if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Big Daddy Kane just dropped a bomb about Jay-Z and Tupac that nobody saw coming. And trust me, the story we've all been fed isn't the whole truth. As most people know, Kane was the one who put Jay-Z on and handed him his first big shot in the game. That's not even up for debate.
Oh, hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
Back in the day, Jay was out here opening for Kane, freestyling on stage, battling in crew ciphers, and making noise. But as Jay's stars started rising, Kane's name somehow got erased from the story. And here's where it gets even juicier. Kane's recent comments tie right back to Tupac.
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, you know, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
While Kane was busy opening doors for Jay-Z in the East, Pac was on the West Coast firing shots at the industry, calling out fake players, and yes, throwing shade directly at Jay-Z. So what's Kane really saying here? Did Jay-Z take more than just a little inspiration from Kane and Pac? And did he climb to the top by stepping over their legacies and never looking back? Let's unpack this drama. When Jay-Z was still just another unknown MC in the early 90s,
having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
Big Daddy Kane stepped in heavy. He brought Jay on tour during his Chocolate City run, letting him spit fire freestyles on stage while Kane changed outfits. And it wasn't just about stage time either. Kane went further by helping shop Jay's demo, recording tracks, and even sending them out to major labels. And based on what Kane said, it wasn't easy to sell Jay-Z because labels simply didn't like his style. And while those labels passed, Kane still believed Jay would eventually grow into his own, and he was right.
Gotta go back to Brooklyn's finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we gotta take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we gotta take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we gotta take over New York. Before we take over New York, you gotta take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand?
But here's where the narrative gets tricky. Kane's influence on Jay's early fast-paced, smooth yet aggressive flow is undeniable. But Jay-Z's later interviews, documentaries, and public narratives paid little attention to this formative relationship. In his memoir, Decoded, Jay-Z does acknowledge learning, pacing, and stagecraft from Kane, but there's no deep gratitude or repeated homage. Just a brief nod. Kane noticed to this silence. There were even rumors that Jay's line on "Do It Again, Put Your Hands Up" was a diss at Kane. Jay raps, "I've seen the same-ish happen to Kane. 3 cuts in your eyebrows trying to wild out." As you all know, Kane was known for shaving 3 lines into his eyebrows as part of his signature style. And that line can easily sound like a slide disc to Big Daddy Kane, even if Jay never confirmed it.
Yeah, I think Pac was more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie, whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac...
Kane was iconic for his 3 eyebrow slits, a style statement that became part of his brand in the late 80s and early 90s. By the late 90s, Kane's commercial star had faded and younger rappers were taken over. So when Jay, who once looked up to Kane and was even mentored by him, delivered that line in a cold, dismissive tone on "Do It Again," it came off to some as mockery. Even Angie Martinez threw fuel on the fire when she reportedly said on her show that Jay's line was a diss. That only sent the rumor mill spinning out of control. But later on, Kane brushed it off publicly, though some folks weren't buying his calm act. See, Jay-Z himself admitted he studied Kane closely backstage, soaking up every move. But as Jay transformed into his gangster hustler persona, Kane quietly stepped back, giving him room to build his own identity. Now, years later, Kane's starting to question, did Jay push him out of the picture on purpose? But Kane wasn't the only one feeling this shift. Around that same time, Tupac was stepping up, and he was already calling out the exact type of industry games Kane's now hinting at. Pac saw it early, the way the culture was shifting from artists with real substance and style to a new wave of rappers chasing image, money, and power.
What Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's finest. If they have twins, you probably have two Pacs. Get it? Two Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you, ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
And one name that started buzzing in those conversations, Jay-Z. Back in the day, whispers flew that Jay felt threatened by Tupac. Deep down, some say Jay knew he couldn't match Pac's natural charisma. Because as slick as Jay was with his wordplay, Pac had that raw energy, that untouchable it factor that couldn't be copied or taught. And before long, all that quiet tension, it boiled over. Jay-Z and Tupac had real beef brewing right before Pac's tragic death, and it all popped off when Jay linked up with Biggie to take shots at the West Coast. Jay and Big, both Bed-Stuy natives, started getting tight in the early 90s. By 1996, they dropped Brooklyn's Finest, one of the hardest-hitting tracks on Jay's debut album, Reasonable Doubt. But that collab? It lit the fuse that nobody could put out. Irv Gotti, who was working closely with Jay at the time, later revealed he warned Jay not to bring Biggie on that track. The East Coast versus West Coast beef was already spiraling out of control, and Irv could see the writing on the wall.
The story is that Jay was going to try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now. And they wasn't going to let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't going to come out the hotel. He was going to miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared of the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clear.
Adding Big into the mix, he said, was like pouring gasoline on an open flame. And deep down, Irv knew this move could blow up in Jay's face. Fast. Pac and Biggie actually started out as cool with each other, but everything took a dark, bloody turn in '94. That's when Pac was shot 5 times during a robbery at Quad Studios. To this day, Pac believed Biggie and Diddy knew something about the setup, but stayed quiet and never gave him a heads up. And that felt like the ultimate betrayal, one Pac could never forgive. Biggie, on the other hand, always denied knowing a thing about the hit, but the damage was done. After the Quad Studio shooting, Pac and Biggie went from friends to full-blown enemies, taking shots at each other in public. Not long before Jay dropped Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie released Who Shot Ya, a track that many took as a taunt aimed directly at Pac. By then, East Coast versus West Coast tensions were already explosive. That's exactly why Irv Gotti begged Jay to hold off on dropping his track with Biggie. He saw how messy things were getting and warned Jay not to pour more gasoline on the fire. But Jay didn't listen.
Bro, you filled them shoes, though. You came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in. And I just know how much Big, like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like 2 people, because that's all it was those 2 people, and they had like the game. They had things on lock. Hov was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like you know, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, you know, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hov really kept the, you know, not, you know, Hov kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, you know what I'm saying, take it even higher.
He went ahead and released Brooklyn's Finest anyway, and things got even messier. Biggie's verse on the track, he threw slick jabs at Pac, calling him his son and dropping hints about those infamous rumors of Pac and Faith Evans. To a lot of people, that was the ultimate disrespect, and it sent the beef into overdrive. After all this, Pac came out swinging, firing shots at Jay-Z on tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and F Your Friends. By then, fans were hyped and fully expecting Jay to clap back with a savage diss of his own. But here's the wild part, Jay never got the chance. Just weeks later, Pac was fatally gunned down in that infamous Las Vegas drive-by. But here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Jay actually did record a response track called Scathing. According to insiders, it was a vicious diss aimed straight at Pac. So brutal, Jay decided not to drop it while Pac was still alive, worried it would pour gasoline on an already raging fire. After Pac's death, though, Jay performed Scathing live at the Apollo. DJ Clark Kent later spilled the tea, saying the track was insanely disrespectful. To him, it felt like Jay was carrying a chip on his shoulder, like he had something to prove and finally let it all out once Pac was gone. But that raises a question nobody wants to ask. Why would Jay perform such a ruthless diss after Pac was already 6 feet under? There's been a lot of talk over the years. Some say Jay felt relieved when Pac died because deep down he knew he could never outshine him. Pac wasn't just sharp with his pen, he had that raw presence, that larger-than-life energy Jay couldn't replicate. And here's where it gets even messier. Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, once revealed that Jay was so intimidated by Pac, he flat out refused to leave his hotel room in Las Vegas for a show, just because Pac and his crew were in town. That fear, it was real. These days, plenty of fans have called Jay-Z sneaky for never firing a direct diss at Pac while he was alive. But here's the real kicker. Jay and his East Coast crew were constantly tossing out subliminal shots trying to lure Pac into an emotional response. And as we all know, Pac wasn't one to hold back. Rappers from back in the day say it straight, Jay was seriously jealous of Pac's natural charisma. No matter how sharp Jay's bars were, he knew he couldn't touch Pac's raw charm or larger-than-life energy. Even Nas later spilled in an interview that Jay-Z had a bitter streak when it came to Pac and Biggie's success. Nas told Vibe, "We were kicking it, and he told me straight up he's better than Biggie. I looked at him like he was out of his mind. Then he got even crazier and said Tupac and DMX weren't lyricists. I told him I completely disagreed. Tupac was the greatest ever, period." That moment left Nas stunned, but it wasn't the only time Jay's words and moves made people side-eye him. Over the years, more and more fans have started labeling Jay as a snake in the industry, pointing to how he moved in the shadows while climbing to the top. And for some, it all started with how he handled Pac and Biggie's legacies. There's also the fact that Jay-Z stayed tight with Diddy, even after those rumors started swirling, linking Diddy to Tupac's murder. And get this, after both Pac and Biggie were gone, Diddy began hyping up Jay, calling him the one who filled their shoes. Through all the years of wild accusations and shady headlines around Diddy, Jay never flinched. He kept him close. That is, until 2023, when the Cassie lawsuit exploded and exposed a side of Diddy no one was ready for. Suddenly, Jay caught amnesia, claiming he and Diddy were never even real friends. So what's the real story here? You've got Big Daddy Kane dropping hints about betrayal and disappointment, Tupac's warnings about fake players in the industry, and Jay-Z's quiet, calculated moves behind the scenes. Together, it paints a picture of a man who didn't just borrow flows. He carefully stepped over mentors and rivals to build his empire. As talented as Jay is, more and more people in the game are starting to say it out loud. Jay's legacy might be built on betrayal and cold strategy. But now I want to hear from you. Was Jay-Z just playing chess while everyone else played checkers? Or did he cross the line? Did he really turn his back on Kane after blowing up? And was his jealousy of Tupac the piece nobody wanted to admit? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next big drop. And hit that bell so you're first in line when the next scandal breaks. I'll see y'all in the next one.